Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm Di, and today I am bringing you the spoiler tag. I was tagged by Paperback Junkie, or Matt, and the original creator for this tag was Gunpowder, Fiction, and Plot. I'll link them both down in the description box below in case you're interested in checking them out. So this tag has to do all with spoilers and what I think of them. So let's get into it. The first question is, what do you consider a spoiler? And I think I'm more stringent on this than most people, but most things to me are spoilers. I don't like to know things about the books I'm reading going into it. I like to go into them very blind. I will, check the synopsis by doing a skim. To see if it's something that I'd be interested in. I don't fully read synopsis of books before I add it to my to-read list on Goodreads. My to-read list on Goodreads is not only books that I own, but it is also books that I have heard about and think that I'd be interested in reading, and so I just sock it all away on that one list. So if you ever look at my to-read list, it is rather large, and that is why. But yeah, I don't like to hear a lot of stuff about things that I am potentially going to be reading. Now, there's a caveat to that, definitely. There are times where there are things that I'm not sure I'd be interested in reading, and maybe I don't feel like I care whether or not there is a spoiler. And there are times like that for me. For example, when Harry Potter, the last installment came out for that, I flipped to the end of the book and read that first. Because if the end wasn't something that I thought would be worth reading the entire series for, I wasn't going to read it. And so, yeah, I'm a little weird that way, but I don't like to know a lot of stuff about most things I'm reading going into it. And a lot of times things that I have on my to-read list stay there for a really long time, to the point where I don't even remember what the story is about. So, yeah, lots of things are spoilers to me. Number 2, does the genre you're reading impact what you consider to be a spoiler? And I definitely say yes. With mysteries, I definitely don't want to know a lot, if anything, about what I'm reading. With fantasy and other things like that, I don't think there's a lot of things. I'm not as stringent with those genres. I don't read a lot of romance, but if I did, obviously, it's expected that the main characters are going to get together at some time, so I don't find that to be a spoiler in regards to, like I mentioned before, relationships being spoilers. But like with a cozy mystery series, a lot of times there are love triangles, and I hate that, but it is a thing, and I don't necessarily want to know who she's going to end up with, or if she's going to choose one of those two people. Maybe sometime down the line somebody else comes into the picture. I don't want to know any of that. I think that is definitely a spoiler. And so, yeah, the genre that I'm reading definitely impacts what I consider to be a spoiler. So number 3 is, all the best bits are in the trailer. Sometimes a synopsis can be too detailed. Do you research books prior to reading them, or do you go in blind? So I already answered this one. I definitely go in blind. A lot of times I find synopsis gives way too much away in the book. And sometimes they can even be wrong. I've come across some synopsis where I've read the book and then gone back and read the synopsis, and things in the synopsis are incorrect. They're not things that happened in the book in the synopsis. So it can definitely be misleading, I think, especially if you're somebody who reads synopsis before jumping into a book. And movie trailers, since we're talking about trailers, I definitely think they can be too detailed sometimes. But yeah, I like to go into my reads blind. If anything, I'd like to know on a surface level, like very in general, what it's about, like a 5-word summary maybe, the genre it is. Very little details do I want to know about anything that I'm reading. Or watching, for that matter. So number 4 is sometimes the introduction or translator's notes can spoil the ending, especially for classics. Has this ever happened to you? I don't read very many classics, and I'm not very successful at reading classics. So I don't get introductions or translator's notes a lot. Now I do read a lot of manga, and those translator's notes are usually at the end of the volume. So I don't find that has ever spoiled anything to me. And if there's an introduction in the book that I'm reading, I normally don't read it. So I would have to say no. Introductions or translator's notes have never spoiled anything for me, because I either don't read them or they're at the end of what I've read. So number 5 is name a time somebody spoiled a novel for you. And I just mentioned that I do read a lot of manga, and I have had a manga spoiled for me. I can't necessarily think off the top of my head of a novel that was spoiled for me, but a manga has definitely been spoiled for me. When we're talking about spoilers and manga, I had watched somebody's first impressions video, which is a video that a lot of manga tubers make, that gives their general thoughts on the very first volume of a series. And this particular person, I'm not going to name any names, but this particular person was talking about a first volume of a series that I had already read. I hadn't read past that first volume, however, and I still haven't. But they were talking about this first volume, and then they let it slip something about one of the characters that did not happen in that first volume or was revealed in that first volume, and I was just like, oh my gosh. And I know that it wasn't revealed in that first volume because I read that first volume twice. So yeah, needless to say, I no longer watch that person's first impressions videos because I have this fear that they're going to spoil something for me. So yeah, that was a definite time in my memory that somebody has spoiled something for me, and it really bothered me. So yeah, I have now stopped watching that person's first impression videos because of that. But that is the only time I can think of at this moment that I've been spoiled for something. I'm sure there have been other times. I think there was one other time where I got spoiled for a character death in the last installment of a trilogy. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I hate that. I hate that. So number 6 is, have you ever spoiled a novel for someone else? And I'm hoping not, unless they have specifically told me that they're not going to read it or that they don't mind being spoiled. I hope I haven't spoiled anything for anybody except in those 2 instances. And I tried to be very general about my thoughts on things that I read. And if I post videos on my channel that will have spoilers, I definitely say up front if there's going to be spoilers in that video, so that any viewer knows not to watch it if they're sensitive to that kind of thing. So yeah, I hope not. I hope I haven't done that to anybody else, because I definitely know what that feels like. Number 7 is, if spoilers ruin novels, are there some authors or genres you can't reread? Now, I don't quite understand this question, because if you're rereading it, it wouldn't be a spoiler, right? Because you already know what's happening. With like Cozy Mysteries, for example, you're pretty much guaranteed to get the person who done it in the end. So I read a lot of Cozy Mysteries, even if that's the case. And, you know, the setup is the same with that. You have amateur sleuths. And so you know they're going to get into trouble, or they're going to brush up against the law in the wrong way. And so I would have to say, no, there aren't any authors or genres that I can't reread from spoilers. But if I don't know what the story is about, then it wouldn't be a spoiler. So, yeah. Now, if I had found a spoiler out before I had read the book, that would be different. That may put me off from reading it, especially if it's a spoiler on something that would make it seem like the series wasn't worth putting my time into. Like I had mentioned before with Harry Potter, if the ending wasn't how I thought it was going to be, I wouldn't have wanted to waste my time reading that entire series. So I can definitely tell you that there was a trilogy that I did end up reading to completion, that at the end of it, I wish I knew what the end was going to be on that, because I did feel like I wasted my time reading that whole series. But I got off track. Let's get back to it. Number 8. When reviewing, are you spoiler free? Does this limit your ability to discuss? So like I mentioned before, I do have videos on my channel which include spoilers, and that includes my Book 1 Cozies Club chapter by chapters, because I do read the set number of chapters and then talk about my candid thoughts on those recordings. I have finishing the series videos, which do talk about books that are past the first volume in series, and I always preface those videos with there could be spoilers, because I am talking about books past the first installment in a series. But other than that, I really try to be as spoiler free as possible and just give my general thoughts about the book, whether I liked it, whether I disliked it, if anything made me uncomfortable. I really try not to give specifics about things that happened in the books that I'm reviewing, other than in my chapter by chapters or my finishing the series books. And even in the finishing the series, I try to be very general as possible. And most people who would watch that video wouldn't watch it unless they've read those series, I would think. So yeah. Number 9. Shout out. Tell us about some channels you enjoy and tag them. So it actually gives me an actual number of people to tag, and I can't think of that many. So I'm going to talk about Shannon from Shannon Riddler. She is a very good friend of mine. At least I hold her in the highest regard. We've done some buddy reads together. She reads a wide variety of genres. She also reads some manga as well, and I know she likes to do tags, or at least there was a time where she was doing tags. So I'm going to tag Shannon. I'm also going to tag Laura from the Manga Hoarder and Bizarre Individual. They're both manga tubers who dabble in reading novels. And I think I'd really like to hear their responses on spoilers, and see how that differs for them, especially with the more focus on manga as opposed to novels, because I think having the different formats could give slightly different answers. And then I'm going to tag Lee from Lee Mac. She is another really good friend of mine. She does book and movie content on her channel, as well as some crochet. And we've tagged each other on tags before in the past. Laura and Bazaar also tagged me in something else, which should be coming up soon. So yeah, I'd be really interested to hear what all four of them think about spoilers. And then I tag you. If you are watching this video and you'd like to do this tag, definitely do this tag and let me know. You can say that I tagged you. And yeah, so that does it for this tag. Let me know your thoughts on spoilers down in the comments below. Like I said, I am probably more stringent than most on what I consider a spoiler and what I like to know or not like to know before going into things I read. So share with me your thoughts on what you think are spoilers and what you consider spoilers, and maybe some of your answers to some of these questions. I'll list all the questions down in the description box below. If nothing else, if you could leave me a blue heart emoji down in the comments below, that would be greatly appreciated and would help me out a lot. So that's all I have for you today. I hope you're all doing great. I hope you're all safe and healthy. And until next time, take care and smile always. Bye.